Finding out my wife had been unfaithful felt like someone shoved a fist into my ribs. Saying those words, "My wife cheated," still tastes like metal in my mouth. You never expect the person you trusted to turn and stab you. Betrayal usually comes from where you least expect it. Home. It began on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I came back earlier than usual, thinking I'd surprise her with dinner. Instead, my surprise was discovering a message glowing on the kitchen counter. Her phone buzzed. Curiosity made me glance. The preview burned across the screen. "Last night was unforgettable. I can still smell your perfume." The room tilted. I stood there, phone heavy in my hand, as the air left my lungs. She stepped out of the shower humming, towel wrapped around her, unaware. I met her gaze and said the only thing I could at that moment. "I know." The color drained from her face, but she didn't crumble. She offered a flat apology and then said something colder. "I don't love you anymore." 10 years of us vanished in a sentence. I packed a bag and left before the house could swallow me whole. I went to Ryan's. He didn't question my red-rimmed eyes or the duffel over my shoulder. He opened his door and let me in. I hadn't expected anyone else to be there that night. His sister, Emily. She'd always been around, quieter than the rest, with an unmissable sharpness behind her smile. I slept badly, more like existing, replaying the message, the shower steam, the emptiness of her words. The next morning, Emily came by with coffee and a simple, steady "Hi. Want breakfast?" She watched me over the plate for a while, then spoke in a way that made my stomach drop. "You know silence helps them," she said. "Your quiet lets her keep living the lie." I asked her what she meant, and she didn't hesitate. Emily had seen more than she'd let on. She'd crossed paths with my wife in places and with people that didn't fit the life we'd built together. She'd noticed patterns and kept them to herself until the night I arrived, stunned and raw. One by one she unfolded what she knew. Names, nights, familiar locations. Not just one indiscretion, a tangled, ongoing series of them. The humiliation hit like a second punch. This wasn't one mistake. It was a long betrayal dressed up as secrecy. Pain turned into something harder, decision. I didn't want theatrics. I didn't want to beg or collapse. I wanted to take control. Over the following days, Emily became more than a confidant. She was a source of facts, dates, and quiet insistence. With Ryan's help, we gathered proof, photos, timestamps, messages, and organized everything. We didn't hand it to my wife. We distributed it to everyone who mattered to her, family, friends, colleagues. Her carefully managed image splintered overnight. Next came the legal moves. I consulted a lawyer. Emily offered to testify to what she'd seen. Step by step, the marriage unraveled in my favor. The house ended up on the market. Financial ties were severed. I left the divorce to the court and the paperwork. I focused on myself. Watching the life she thought she could keep fall apart was not my goal of revenge, but it was a consequence of taking back my power. What mattered most, though, was what happened after the paperwork was signed. My wife reached out in the aftermath, calls dripping with tears and pleas for a second chance. I listened to none of it. "No," I told her. "You made your choices." There was a clarity in that refusal that felt like sunlight after weeks of fog. Emily stayed close. She didn't just hand me the facts. She reminded me I wasn't ruined by someone else's selfishness. She urged me to rebuild rather than break. Together we made small, ordinary plans, a hike, a bad movie night, a terrible attempt at baking, things that didn't fix scars but helped me stop noticing them every second. In time, that quiet, steady rebuilding became the revenge I wanted. Not to ruin her further, but to make a life she would no longer recognize. To be so whole and forward-moving that she'd wonder what she'd thrown away. The truth had been my weapon, my life after it, my victory. Betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. She thought her choices would break me. Instead, they sharpened me. I sold the house, split what needed splitting, and kept the parts of my life worth keeping. More importantly, I learned how to stand again. So the story ends not in spectacle, but in a slow, steady reclamation. evidence collected, wrongs addressed, and then the deliberate work of living well. Watching someone else's carefully arranged world crumble is a hollow satisfaction. Watching your own life grow taller after it's been stomped on, that's the sweetest kind of payback.